This video training is designed to review the proper steps for inspecting and maintaining an Interlube AC3 chassis lubrication system. A typical multi-line auto grease system on a tractor unit has 24 separate lube lines going from the pumping elements to the 24 different lube points on the chassis. There are 6 different pumping element sizes available, depending on the grease volume needed for a particular chassis position. The timer setting on the pump is preset from the factory to automatically grease the entire system every 30 minutes when the ignition is on. Although the timer setting is adjustable, the 30-minute interval has proven to be a reliable setting and generally does not have to be changed. To properly inspect your Interlube auto grease system, you will need to inspect the line connection to each lube fitting, check each line for any signs of damage or wear, inspect the line connection to each pumping element, inspect and test the pump, inspect the plug connection on the pump, inspect the reservoir vent tube, know how to properly remove, clean, reassemble and refill the reservoir, and replace the label if it is peeled or missing. Be sure to wear the required safety gear when performing this work. There are grease lines running to approximately 24 points on this particular chassis. Inspect the line and fitting connected to each of the 24 lube points. Make sure the lines are firmly secured into the push-lock fittings and there are no leaks around the fitting. Reconnect any disconnected lines and replace any leaking fittings. Look for signs of fresh grease to confirm that grease is being pumped to each fitting. Lines that are connected to or rubbing against other chassis components could become worn and leak. In this example, lines from the oil filtration system were secured to the grease lines, resulting in rubbing damage and worn grease lines. You may have to reposition some lines to avoid unwanted contact with other chassis components. Worn or damaged lines should be repaired or replaced. A big advantage of the Interlube system is that each of the 24 lube points has its own separate line, so a damaged line will not impact the rest of the system. At the pump manifold, each line has a numbered yellow tag where it connects to the pumping element. This corresponds to the tag number at the opposite end, where the line connects to the lube fitting. Check each pumping element for any loose connections, damage, or grease leakage. Be sure to reconnect any loose lines to the corresponding pumping element and replace any leaking or damaged pumping elements with the same color code that is being removed. Once all of the lines and fittings have been checked, you need to inspect and test the pump. Turn the ignition to the on position, but do not start the engine. With the ignition on, confirm that the green indicator light under the pump is illuminated. Once power is confirmed, push the manual override button to verify the paddle inside the pump is turning. The green light will flash for approximately 1 minute while the paddle completes a full rotation. If the green light does not come on, turn the ignition off and unscrew the power plug from the pump. Check the power cord contacts and make sure the plug terminal connections are clean and free of corrosion. Use contact grease to coat and protect the power cord contacts. Reconnect the plug. Turn the ignition on and check again to see if the green indicator light comes on. If you have power, repress the manual override button and verify the paddle inside the pump is turning. If there is still no power, you have either a bad motor, circuit board, or cord connection. If the power cord terminals are permanently damaged from corrosion, the bottom housing cover and electric cord should be replaced with the upgraded IP67 water-resistant plug, housing, and power cord. In order for the pump to work properly, air is vented through the molded vent tube located on the back of the reservoir. An overfilled reservoir can cause the vent tube to become blocked with grease, which would prevent the pump from working properly and will take much longer to refill the reservoir. You must completely remove and clean the reservoir and vent tube if this occurs. To remove the reservoir and clean the vent tube, first clean any dirt and grease away from the area where the reservoir connects to the base of the pump. This will minimize the possibility of contaminants getting into the grease and contaminating the pumping elements. Next, remove the 3 screws from the reservoir. And cover the manifold with shop rags. Try to contain the grease inside the reservoir as you carefully lift and separate it from the pump. The O-ring must also be removed and cleaned for reuse. Remove all of the grease from the reservoir. It can be repurposed for use on fifth wheels or other applications. The reservoir must be thoroughly cleaned, and the small air vent must be completely free of any grease. Before reassembling the reservoir, be sure to clean any overflow grease from the mounting bracket. Replace the clean O-ring and carefully reset the reservoir onto the mounting bracket, making sure it is properly sealed. Replace the 3 screws and re-secure the reservoir. The reservoir is filled through the Zerk fitting located below the pump manifold. Wipe off the fitting to ensure a good connection. It may be helpful to turn the ignition to the on position and press the manual override button to run the pump when refilling the reservoir. This will enable the grease to be more evenly distributed. You may have to press the override button a few times to keep it running during the filling process, since it operates in 1-minute cycles. Be sure to stay below the max fill line to avoid overfilling the reservoir. Here are the common grease grades with a corresponding low-end temperature range. Generally, you would use an NLGI number 1, 0, or 00 in colder climates with prolonged low temperatures below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The NLGI 000 is used in extreme low temperatures, down to -30 degrees. A good year-round grease grade for southern regions is NLGI number 2. Over time, the reservoir can become discolored, which will make it difficult to see the rotational movement of the paddle. When this occurs, replace the old reservoir with a new one. An O-ring will be included with the new reservoir. It is very important to have a label with a max fill line on the reservoir. Over time, the label can peel away, caused by exposure to sun, moisture, and chemicals. When that happens, completely remove the old label and thoroughly clean the area where the new label will be applied. We recommend using denatured alcohol or other suitable cleaning solution. Apply a new label with the max fill line positioned about 1 inch from the top of the reservoir. Performing these basic inspection and maintenance procedures on your Interlube AC3 chassis lubrication system will help keep everything in top operating condition. For your reference, here is a list of replacement part numbers for the Interlube AC3 chassis lubrication system. You can also contact Interlube directly for further assistance with identifying or replacing any component parts.